What if the real reason your body stores fat at night has nothing to do with calories and everything to do with hormones? Most people blame aging, slow metabolism, or lack of exercise, but the truth is far more biological. Your body follows a powerful hormonal schedule every 24 hours, and when that schedule becomes disrupted, your metabolism changes dramatically during the nighttime hours. One of the biggest hidden triggers behind nighttime fat storage is elevated cortisol. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, but its role goes far beyond stress alone. Cortisol is produced by the adrenal glands and is supposed to follow a natural rhythm. Normally, cortisol should be highest in the morning to help wake you up, support energy production, regulate blood sugar, and prepare the body for activity. Then, throughout the day, cortisol should gradually decline, reaching its lowest point at night so the body can enter recovery mode, repair tissues, burn fat efficiently, and sleep deeply. But in modern life, this rhythm is often completely reversed. Chronic stress, emotional tension, financial pressure, excessive screen exposure, poor sleep habits, overtraining, and even blood sugar instability can keep cortisol elevated late into the evening. And when cortisol stays high at night, your body shifts into survival mode instead of repair mode. That single hormonal shift changes the entire metabolic environment of the body. One major effect of elevated nighttime cortisol is increased blood sugar. Cortisol stimulates the liver to release stored glucose into the bloodstream because the body interprets stress as a signal that it may need emergency energy. The problem is that most people are not physically active at night. They are sitting, watching TV, scrolling on their phones, or preparing for sleep. So now the bloodstream contains excess glucose that is not being burned for energy. In response, the pancreas releases insulin to remove that sugar from the blood. Insulin is a storage hormone. Its job is to push glucose into cells, but when there is more glucose than the body needs, insulin converts the excess into stored fat. This is one reason elevated nighttime cortisol can directly contribute to abdominal fat accumulation. The belly area is especially sensitive to cortisol. Fat cells around the abdomen contain a higher concentration of cortisol receptors, which means stress hormones preferentially drive fat storage in this region. This explains why many people notice stubborn belly fat even when they are eating relatively healthy during the day. The hormonal environment at night may be working against them. High cortisol at night also interferes with one of the most important fat-burning hormones in the body, growth hormone. During deep sleep, the body releases growth hormone to support muscle repair, cellular regeneration, metabolic recovery, and fat burning. But cortisol and growth hormone have an inverse relationship. When cortisol remains elevated, growth hormone production drops. This means the body loses one of its most powerful nighttime fat-burning and anti-aging mechanisms. At the same time, sleep quality begins to deteriorate. Elevated cortisol activates the nervous system, keeping the body in a more alert state. Even if someone technically sleeps for 7 or 8 hours, the quality of that sleep may be poor. Deep restorative sleep becomes fragmented, and this creates another metabolic problem. Poor sleep disrupts leptin and ghrelin, the hormones responsible for hunger and satiety. Leptin normally signals fullness, while ghrelin stimulates appetite. Sleep deprivation lowers leptin and increases ghrelin, causing stronger cravings for sugar and refined carbohydrates the next day. This creates a vicious cycle of blood sugar spikes, insulin surges, and continued fat storage. There is also a major connection between cortisol and insulin resistance. Over time, repeated cortisol-driven glucose release forces the pancreas to produce more insulin. Eventually, cells become less responsive to insulin signals. When this happens, the body requires even higher insulin levels to control blood sugar. Elevated insulin not only blocks fat burning, but also accelerates fat storage, especially around the liver and abdominal organs. Another overlooked factor is inflammation. Chronically elevated cortisol can eventually dysregulate the immune system and contribute to inflammatory changes throughout the body. Inflammation further damages metabolic efficiency, disrupts mitochondrial energy production, and makes weight loss increasingly difficult. This is why fixing nighttime fat storage requires more than calorie restriction alone. The body must feel safe enough hormonally to enter recovery mode at night. Stabilizing blood sugar, reducing late-night eating, improving magnesium intake, lowering blue light exposure, and supporting deep sleep can dramatically improve cortisol regulation. The timing of stress matters just as much as the stress itself. When cortisol remains elevated during the wrong part of the day, the body receives a biological signal to conserve energy and store fat. And once that hormonal pattern becomes chronic, metabolism begins shifting towards survival instead of fat burning. Understanding this changes the entire conversation around weight gain. Your body is not simply responding to food. It is responding to hormones, circadian rhythms, stress signals, sleep quality, and metabolic timing. And when those systems become imbalanced at night, fat storage becomes the body's automatic survival response. What if the biggest reason your body stores fat at night is not how much you eat, but when you eat? Many people focus entirely on calories while completely ignoring one of the most powerful regulators of fat storage in the human body: insulin timing. The truth is, eating late at night can severely disrupt insulin sensitivity, slow fat burning, and push the body into a metabolic state that favors fat storage instead of energy production. Your body operates on a circadian rhythm, which is essentially an internal biological clock that controls hormones, digestion, metabolism, body temperature, and sleep cycles. During the daytime, the body is naturally more insulin sensitive. This means your cells respond more efficiently to insulin and can use glucose for energy more effectively. But as the evening approaches, insulin sensitivity naturally declines. This is a built-in survival mechanism designed to prepare the body for rest and fasting during sleep. The problem is that modern eating habits completely disrupt this biological system. Late-night snacking, heavy dinners, sugary desserts, processed carbohydrates, and eating close to bedtime force the body to handle large amounts of glucose at a time when metabolism is already slowing down. This creates a major hormonal problem inside the body. When you eat carbohydrates or sugar at night, blood glucose rises. In response, the pancreas releases insulin to move that glucose out of the bloodstream and into the cells. But because insulin sensitivity is lower during the nighttime hours, the cells do not respond as efficiently. As a result, the pancreas must produce even more insulin to achieve the same effect. This is where fat storage begins accelerating. Insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone, it is one of the most powerful fat storage hormones in the entire body. When insulin levels rise, the body shifts away from fat burning and into storage mode. High insulin blocks lipolysis, which is the breakdown of stored body fat, for energy. In simple terms, as long as insulin remains elevated, your body has a much harder time accessing and burning stored fat. This becomes especially problematic at night because physical activity is minimal. During the daytime, muscles may burn some of the incoming glucose for movement and energy production. But at night, the body's energy demand drops significantly. If excess glucose enters the bloodstream late in the evening, much of it is more likely to be stored rather than burned. The liver also plays a major role in this process. When excess glucose cannot be immediately used, the liver converts some of it into glycogen. But glycogen storage capacity is limited. Once those stores become full, the body begins converting excess glucose into triglycerides, which are then stored as body fat. Much of this fat tends to accumulate around the abdomen and internal organs, especially when insulin levels remain chronically elevated. Late-night eating also interferes with another critical metabolic process that should occur during sleep: nighttime fat oxidation. During healthy sleep, especially in a fasting state, the body gradually shifts toward burning stored fat for fuel. This process supports weight regulation, metabolic repair, and hormone balance. But when someone eats close to bedtime, insulin stays elevated for hours, delaying this fat-burning transition. Instead of entering a fasting repair state overnight, the body stays metabolically occupied digesting and storing nutrients. There is also a strong connection between late-night eating and poor sleep quality. Digesting a heavy meal at night increases metabolic activity when the body should be winding down. Blood sugar fluctuations can stimulate stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline during sleep, leading to restless sleep, nighttime awakenings, and reduced deep sleep. This creates another hormonal imbalance involving leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is the hormone that signals fullness and satiety, while ghrelin stimulates hunger. Poor sleep lowers leptin and raises ghrelin, causing stronger cravings the next day, particularly for sugar and refined carbohydrates. Over time, this creates a continuous cycle of overeating, insulin spikes, and fat accumulation. Another overlooked issue is the effect of late-night eating on insulin resistance. Constant nighttime insulin elevation forces cells to become less responsive to insulin signals over time. The pancreas then compensates by producing even more insulin. This chronic state of hyperinsulinemia makes fat loss increasingly difficult and raises the risk of metabolic syndrome, fatty liver disease, prediabetes, and type 2 diabetes. Even the digestive system is affected. The stomach, pancreas, liver, and intestines all follow circadian rhythms. Digestive enzymes, bile production, and nutrient processing become less efficient late at night. This can lead to bloating, acid reflux, sluggish digestion, and impaired nutrient absorption. One of the most important concepts people misunderstand about weight gain is that the body is highly hormonal. Fat storage is not controlled by calories alone. Hormones determine whether the body burns fuel or stores it, and insulin is one of the central hormones controlling that decision. When food is consistently consumed late at night, especially refined carbohydrates and sugars, the body receives repeated hormonal signals that favor storage over burning. Over time, this shifts the metabolism into a more insulin-resistant and fat-preserving state. Protecting metabolic health often requires restoring the body's natural eating rhythm. Allowing several hours between the last meal and sleep gives insulin time to fall, supports overnight fat burning, stabilizes blood sugar, improves sleep quality, and reduces stress on the pancreas and liver. The timing of food can be just as powerful as the food itself. And when insulin remains elevated during the hours your body is designed to recover and burn fat, nighttime fat storage becomes almost inevitable. What if your body is trying to burn fat at night, but a hidden hormone imbalance is silently shutting the entire process down? Most people think sleep is simply a time when the body rests. But biologically, sleep is one of the most metabolically active recovery periods in the entire 24-hour cycle. During deep sleep, your body repairs tissues, regulates blood sugar, restores the brain, balances hormones, and activates powerful fat-burning mechanisms. One of the most important hormones involved in this nighttime repair system is growth hormone. Growth hormone is produced primarily by the pituitary gland, and one of its biggest surges occurs during deep sleep, especially in the early part of the night. Despite its name, growth hormone is not just for children or muscle growth. In adults, it plays a critical role in fat metabolism, muscle preservation, cellular repair, collagen production, immune function, and metabolic recovery. In many ways, growth hormone acts like the body's nighttime repair and fat-burning signal. When growth hormone is released properly during sleep, it stimulates lipolysis, which is the breakdown of stored fat into usable energy. This is one reason healthy sleep is strongly associated with better body composition and lower abdominal fat levels. While you sleep, the body is supposed to shift into a fasting state where stored fat becomes a primary fuel source. Growth hormone helps drive this transition. But there is a major problem in modern metabolism. Poor sleep dramatically reduces growth hormone production. Sleep deprivation, frequent nighttime awakenings, stress, elevated cortisol, late-night eating, blood sugar instability, alcohol consumption, and excessive blue light exposure can all interfere with deep sleep architecture. When deep sleep becomes fragmented, growth hormone release declines significantly. And when growth hormone falls, the body loses one of its most important nighttime fat-burning mechanisms. This creates a metabolic chain reaction. Without adequate growth hormone, fat breakdown slows down. The body becomes less efficient at mobilizing stored fat for energy, particularly visceral fat around the abdomen. Muscle recovery also becomes impaired, and this matters because muscle tissue is one of the primary drivers of metabolic rate. The more metabolically active muscle mass you maintain, the more calories and fuel your body naturally burns, even at rest. When growth hormone remains chronically low, muscle maintenance becomes more difficult, metabolic efficiency declines, and fat storage becomes easier. At the same time, poor sleep directly affects insulin regulation. During healthy sleep, insulin sensitivity is restored and balanced. But sleep deprivation increases insulin resistance, meaning cells become less responsive to insulin signals. The pancreas then compensates by producing more insulin to manage blood sugar levels. High insulin is one of the strongest hormonal signals for fat storage. Elevated insulin blocks fat burning and encourages the body to store excess energy, especially around the midsection. This means poor sleep not only reduces growth hormone, but simultaneously increases insulin-related fat storage. Another major issue involves cortisol. Cortisol and growth hormone have an inverse relationship. When nighttime cortisol levels remain elevated due to chronic stress or poor sleep habits, growth hormone production becomes suppressed. This shifts the body into a survival-oriented state instead of a recovery-oriented state. Instead of repairing tissues and burning fat overnight, the body stays metabolically alert. This hormonal imbalance also affects appetite regulation. Poor sleep disrupts leptin and ghrelin, the hormones responsible for fullness and hunger. Leptin normally tells the brain that the body has enough energy stored, while ghrelin stimulates appetite. Sleep deprivation lowers leptin and raises ghrelin, increasing cravings for sugar, processed carbohydrates, and high-calorie foods. This is why people who sleep poorly often feel hungrier the next day, even if they consumed enough calories. The brain interprets poor sleep as a stress state and demands quick energy sources to compensate. Over time, this pattern contributes to weight gain, insulin resistance, and chronic metabolic dysfunction. Poor sleep also affects mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the energy-producing structures inside cells responsible for converting nutrients into usable energy. Deep restorative sleep helps maintain mitochondrial efficiency and cellular repair. When sleep quality declines, mitochondrial performance decreases, leading to lower energy production, fatigue, slower metabolism, and impaired fat oxidation. Another important factor is inflammation. Chronic sleep deprivation increases inflammatory cytokines throughout the body. Inflammation interferes with insulin signaling, damages metabolic flexibility, and places additional stress on the liver, pancreas, cardiovascular system, and brain. Even melatonin plays a role in this process. Melatonin is not just a sleep hormone. It also supports antioxidant protection, mitochondrial repair, and metabolic regulation. Excessive nighttime light exposure, especially from phones, televisions, and LED screens, suppresses melatonin production. This weakens sleep quality and indirectly affects growth hormone release and metabolic recovery. The body is designed to perform much of its healing and fat burning during deep sleep. But when sleep quality becomes disrupted, the hormonal environment changes completely. Growth hormone declines, cortisol rises, insulin resistance worsens, appetite hormones become imbalanced, and fat-burning efficiency decreases. This is why improving sleep is not simply about feeling rested. It is one of the most powerful metabolic strategies for regulating body fat, stabilizing hormones, supporting muscle preservation, and restoring healthy insulin function. When the body cannot enter deep restorative sleep, it loses access to one of its most important nighttime metabolic repair systems. And over time, that hormonal disruption can silently push the body toward fat storage instead of fat burning. What if your nighttime fat gain has less to do with overeating and more to do with hidden mineral deficiencies disrupting your hormones while you sleep? Most people never consider that low levels of certain nutrients can silently interfere with metabolism, stress regulation, sleep quality, and fat burning. But two minerals play a critical role in this process: magnesium and potassium. These minerals are involved in hundreds of biochemical reactions throughout the body, including nerve function, muscle relaxation, blood sugar control, adrenal regulation, and energy production. When the body becomes deficient in magnesium or potassium, the effects go far beyond muscle cramps or fatigue. These deficiencies can directly disrupt sleep quality, increase stress hormones, impair insulin sensitivity, and create a metabolic environment that encourages fat storage during the night. Magnesium is one of the most important minerals for the nervous system. It helps regulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of the body responsible for relaxation, recovery, digestion, and sleep. In many ways, magnesium acts like a natural calming regulator for the brain and body. When magnesium levels are low, the nervous system becomes more excitable. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline become more active, making it harder for the body to fully relax at night. This can lead to shallow sleep, nighttime awakenings, muscle tension, anxiety, and reduced deep sleep quality. The problem is that deep sleep is where many of the body's most important metabolic repair processes occur. During healthy deep sleep, the body releases growth hormone, repairs tissues, stabilizes blood sugar, improves insulin sensitivity, and increases fat burning. But when magnesium deficiency interferes with deep restorative sleep, these metabolic repair mechanisms become impaired. One major consequence is elevated cortisol at night. Normally, cortisol should decline in the evening to allow the body to enter recovery mode. But low magnesium levels can contribute to ongoing nervous system activation, keeping cortisol elevated when it should be low. High nighttime cortisol increases blood sugar by signaling the liver to release stored glucose into the bloodstream. This forces the pancreas to release insulin to control blood sugar levels. And insulin, as one of the body's primary storage hormones, encourages fat storage while simultaneously blocking fat burning. Over time, repeated nighttime cortisol and insulin elevation can contribute to stubborn abdominal fat accumulation. Magnesium deficiency also directly affects insulin sensitivity. Magnesium is required for proper insulin receptor function. Without adequate magnesium, cells become less responsive to insulin signals, meaning the pancreas must produce more insulin to move glucose into the cells. This condition, known as insulin resistance, is one of the most powerful drivers of weight gain and metabolic dysfunction. Elevated insulin not only increases fat storage, but also prevents the body from accessing stored fat for energy. Even people eating relatively healthy diets may struggle with fat loss if magnesium deficiency is impairing insulin function behind the scenes. Potassium plays a different but equally important role. Potassium is essential for fluid balance, nerve transmission, muscle contraction, heart rhythm regulation, and adrenal function. It also helps balance sodium levels and supports healthy cellular communication throughout the body. Low potassium levels can place additional stress on the adrenal glands, which are responsible for producing cortisol and other stress hormones. When potassium is deficient, the body may remain in a more stressed physiological state, especially during the nighttime hours. Potassium deficiency can also interfere with muscle relaxation and cardiovascular stability during sleep. Some people experience nighttime heart palpitations, muscle twitching, restless legs, or poor sleep quality without realizing that mineral imbalance may be contributing to the problem. This matters metabolically because fragmented sleep alters multiple hormones involved in body weight regulation. Poor sleep lowers leptin, the hormone responsible for signaling fullness and satiety. At the same time, it increases ghrelin, the hormone that stimulates hunger and cravings. This hormonal shift increases appetite, especially cravings for sugar and refined carbohydrates the next day. Those cravings are not simply about willpower. They are often driven by hormonal and mineral-related imbalances affecting the brain and metabolism. There is also a strong connection between magnesium, potassium, and mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the energy-producing structures inside cells responsible for converting nutrients into usable energy. Both minerals are required for healthy mitochondrial activity and ATP production. When these minerals are deficient, energy production becomes less efficient. Fatigue increases, metabolism slows down, and the body becomes less effective at burning fat for fuel. Another major issue is inflammation. Chronic magnesium deficiency has been linked to increased inflammatory activity throughout the body. Inflammation disrupts insulin signaling, damages metabolic flexibility, and places stress on organs like the liver and pancreas. Over time, this inflammatory environment can further accelerate fat storage and metabolic dysfunction. Modern diets are one of the biggest reasons these deficiencies are so common. Processed foods are often depleted of magnesium and potassium, while excess sugar, alcohol, caffeine, chronic stress, and certain medications can rapidly deplete the body's mineral reserves. Even excessive sweating, poor digestion, and chronic high insulin levels can increase mineral loss. The body's ability to burn fat efficiently at night depends heavily on hormonal stability, nervous system balance, and deep restorative sleep. But when magnesium and potassium levels are low, the entire nighttime recovery system becomes disrupted. Stress hormones stay elevated, sleep quality declines, insulin resistance worsens, energy production decreases, and fat-burning efficiency slows down. This is why nutrient deficiencies are often overlooked hidden drivers of nighttime fat gain. The body cannot maintain healthy metabolism and hormone balance without the minerals required to support those systems. And when those deficiencies persist, the body gradually shifts towards stress, fatigue, insulin resistance, and fat storage instead of repair and fat burning. What if one of the biggest reasons your body stores fat at night is sitting in your hand every evening? Most people never realize that nighttime exposure to artificial light, especially blue light from phones, tablets, televisions, and LED screens, can significantly disrupt hormones that control metabolism, fat burning, sleep quality, and appetite regulation. This is not simply about sleep habits. It is a biological disruption affecting the brain, endocrine system, and metabolic function at the cellular level. The human body is designed to follow a circadian rhythm, an internal clock regulated primarily by light exposure. One of the most important hormones controlling this system is melatonin. Melatonin is produced by the pineal gland in response to darkness, and its role extends far beyond making you feel sleepy. Melatonin acts as a master regulator for nighttime recovery. It helps coordinate sleep cycles, supports mitochondrial repair, regulates antioxidant activity, stabilizes metabolic function, and influences hormones involved in fat burning and blood sugar control. Under normal conditions, melatonin levels begin rising in the evening as natural light decreases. This signals the body to slow down metabolic activity related to daytime alertness and shift into repair mode. But blue light exposure interferes with this process dramatically. Blue wavelengths emitted from screens mimic daylight signals to the brain. Specialized receptors in the eyes send signals directly to the hypothalamus, which controls circadian rhythms and hormone regulation. When the brain detects blue light late at night, it suppresses melatonin production because the body interprets the environment as daytime instead of nighttime. This creates a major hormonal mismatch. Without adequate melatonin, the body struggles to enter deep restorative sleep. And when deep sleep becomes impaired, several critical fat-burning and metabolic repair systems begin malfunctioning. One major consequence is disruption of growth hormone release. During deep sleep, the pituitary gland releases growth hormone to support tissue repair, muscle recovery, cellular regeneration, and fat metabolism. Growth hormone plays a major role in mobilizing stored fat for energy during the overnight fasting state. But when melatonin production is suppressed and sleep quality declines, growth hormone release decreases significantly. This means the body loses one of its most powerful nighttime fat-burning hormones. At the same time, cortisol regulation becomes disrupted. Normally, cortisol should decline in the evening to allow relaxation and recovery, but nighttime light exposure can delay this cortisol reduction. In some individuals, cortisol may remain abnormally elevated late into the night. Elevated cortisol stimulates the liver to release glucose into the bloodstream, increasing blood sugar levels during hours when the body should be resting. This triggers insulin release from the pancreas. Insulin then works to lower blood sugar by pushing glucose into cells, but insulin is also a storage hormone. Elevated nighttime insulin reduces fat burning and encourages fat storage, especially around the abdominal area. Over time, repeated nighttime insulin spikes can contribute to insulin resistance, making it increasingly difficult for the body to regulate blood sugar and burn stored fat efficiently. The effects do not stop there. Poor sleep caused by blue light exposure also disrupts leptin and ghrelin, two hormones that control hunger and satiety. Leptin normally signals fullness to the brain, helping regulate appetite and energy balance. Ghrelin stimulates hunger and cravings. When sleep quality declines, leptin levels drop while ghrelin levels rise. This hormonal imbalance increases cravings for sugar, processed carbohydrates, and high-calorie foods the following day. Many people believe these cravings are purely psychological, but in reality, they are often hormonally driven responses to disrupted sleep and circadian imbalance. Blue light exposure also affects mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the energy-producing structures inside cells responsible for converting nutrients into usable energy. Melatonin plays an important role in protecting mitochondria from oxidative stress and supporting cellular energy production. When melatonin production becomes chronically suppressed, mitochondrial efficiency declines. This can lead to fatigue, slower metabolism, reduced fat oxidation, and impaired cellular repair. In other words, the body becomes less efficient at producing energy and more likely to conserve fuel in the form of stored fat. There is also growing evidence that circadian disruption affects the liver, pancreas, and digestive system directly. These organs operate according to biological timing signals. The liver regulates glucose production and detoxification, while the pancreas controls insulin secretion. When circadian rhythms become disrupted by artificial light exposure, these metabolic systems lose synchronization. As a result, blood sugar regulation becomes less stable, insulin sensitivity declines, and metabolic flexibility becomes impaired. Even inflammation is influenced by nighttime light exposure. Chronic circadian disruption has been associated with increased inflammatory activity throughout the body. Inflammation interferes with insulin signaling, damages blood vessels, increases oxidative stress, and places additional strain on metabolic organs. Over time, this inflammatory environment can accelerate weight gain and metabolic dysfunction. The modern environment creates a situation the human body was never biologically designed to handle. For most of human history, darkness triggered recovery hormones, while daylight triggered activity hormones. But now, artificial light extends daytime signals deep into the night, confusing the brain and disrupting hormone timing. The body depends heavily on proper hormonal sequencing to regulate metabolism effectively. Melatonin must rise at night. Cortisol must fall. Growth hormone must activate during deep sleep. Insulin must remain relatively low to allow fat burning during the overnight fasting period. When blue light disrupts this sequence, the body shifts away from recovery and toward metabolic stress, regulation, energy production, and long-term metabolic health.